Okinomi for Ozeki was just one prediction made at the end of 2015 in this book by sumo experts Kosaburo Arashiyama and ex-yokozuna Kitanofuji. Let's take a look at all their predictions and see which came true and which did not. This book, we should recall, was written at the time when Japanese sumo was at its lowest ebb. No homegrown cup winner in 58 meets over almost exactly 10 years. There was no sign that the barren run would be broken in just the next tournament. Which homegrown men can possibly withstand the monstrous power of Terunofuji and Ichinojo? Arashiyama asked, without a thought for Kotoshogiku. Let's begin with the calls the two men got right. Well, firstly, they backed Terunofuji to reach the very top, praising his bold approach to clamping more skillful opponents and smothering them with his power. Even if foes hatch more elaborate plots, he's got the movement to deal with those, Kitanofuji said. He's that special rare specimen who's extremely big, but whose stomach doesn't protrude. But I always felt that if he kept forcing things with that youthful swagger of his, he'd be asking for trouble one day. And lo and behold, he got injured. He needs to study sumo some more, and he'll benefit from his stable regime. 100 bouts a day at times, so I hear, and from the mentoring of Aminishiki. Indeed, Teru did change his style after multiple injuries and scaled the sumo summit. On Ozeki Kisenosato, the two men vowed not to discard their yokozuna hopes just yet. He's good against Hakuho, said Arashiyama, but has far too many thrilling close calls against the lesser men. Without dropping so many winnable bouts, he'd be posting 12 or 13 each meet, said a buoyant Kitanofuji. He should make more use of his outside right. Not doing that is raising his hips and making them more attackable. And he needs to work on his mental side, preferably with a girlfriend behind him. Ringside judges brushing elbows with him claim they can feel his heart heaving. With his strength and ability, he can almost go through the motions and win. Indeed, Kisei did get a girlfriend, and conquered the mental barrier to making yokozuna. On the then third tier Uda, who'd gone 26-2 post-debut, the two men were also spot on. I think Uda will take time to rise, but he could make Division 1 in a year if he stays injury-free, Kitanofuji opined. He actually got there in 14 more months. Rather than expect him to reach the very top, I see him as a Mainumi-type presence who gives top-rankers headaches with his special sumo ability, Kitanofuji added. But when he gets tangled in over-the-shoulder throws, I do worry he'll get injured someday. I see his style changing over time. He'll be better trained in push sumo, no doubt, and he'll need to practice striking with force at the Tachiai. If you speak to Uda himself right now, he'll say that's exactly what's happened. The duo's take on Takarafuji was also pretty shrewd. His inside left is very potent, and he's strong enough to be a Sanyaku fixture, Kitanofuji observed. I think he's good for a couple of spells at or around Sekiwake, and if luck comes his way, he might even make Ozeki, though I think that's a very tall order. Takara had already made Komusubi before that interview. He'd regain it one more time, and make Sekiwake in the following year. The two men also predicted good things for Abi, then only 21, and having just lost his salaried rank. He's still a bit on the thin side, and his arms and legs tend to get in his own way, but he has the makings of a good physique, rather well proportioned, were Kitanofuji's words. He resembles a red king crab at times, but his sumo is full of life and much in the vein of his master Terao. I'm looking forward to where he'll go next. Abi would take the cup 7 years later. And more praise is due for their astute assessment of uni-sensation Chiyo Tairyu. His initial impact is really something and gets us on the edge of our seats, but he has this nasty pulling habit which is sure to hold him back, said his then master's master Kitanofuji. He'd do well to get to Sanyaku for just 1 or 2 meets. As things stand, and don't forget the eye injury which limits the impact his head can take, there's just no way he's making Ozeki. It seems he really hates training and is nowhere near doing enough, but must have natural sumo gifts if he still holds his own in Division 1. That's basically how things went for Tairyu for the 7 ensuing years. The other thing down to a T was their prognosis for Ichinojo, and it shows you how desperate they were at the time to be touting 29-year-olds as sumo hopes for the future. Despite his great height and Hakuho-esque physique, he likes to cling on from low with his inside right, Kitanofuji noted. I thought that would give him no chance at first, but he's so comfortable in that stance that I feel he can rise to Sanyaku. I don't think it's quite enough though to deliver him to Ozeki. Ichinojo made Sekiwake 5 months after that, and garnered 5 more gold stars. But as no foresight can be perfect, the 2 men got several things wrong. Their first wrong assumption was that Ichinojo would rise in tandem with Terunofuji. They did, however, foresee the reasons why that might not occur. His master says he must drop his weight from the 200 kilo mark, Arashiyama wrote. And he shouldn't just be training with his stable's lower rankers, Kitanofuji chimed in. He needs to be dragged to other stables and pushed so hard that he weeps. The only decent workouts he gets are with Haruma Fuji at Isegahama, and he sometimes declines to go there. He's amazing in that he can fight both inside and outside left against sumo's very best. But he has to also lower those tachi-ai hips. The 2 also touted Osuna Arashi as a surefire bet for Sanyaku, despite his early days' injuries. At the time, he'd just scored 8 wins at Maegashira 2, but he'd never hit those heights again. Onosho was singled out as the brightest teenage prospect. The same-aged Takakeisho was not even mentioned. But the Okinomi Ozeki claim is the one that went furthest off target, though the 2 men wisely qualified that with strict sumo conditions. I wish he got it together some 3 years ago, Kitanofuji said. Even Kiseno Sato says he's an amazing fighter. His attributes are head and shoulders above. If he applies himself in training, he'll make Ozeki in a year. But I can't recall ever seeing anyone who trains so little. He's always saying something hurts.